Look closely at the front wheels of this truck. They are already turned, ready to take a corner. But here's the real question. Will the entire truck actually follow that turn? As soon as the truck moves forward, the front wheels will follow a curved path, but the rear wheels are fixed in position. They cannot steer on their own. So if the truck is forced into a turn, the rear tires must scrub sideways against the road. Under a heavy load, their resistance can become so high that even after the front wheels turn, the truck may still be pushed almost straight ahead. To understand why this happens, let us start with a simple case. Suppose the truck has only two axles, one steering axle at the front and one fixed axle at the rear. In this setup, the vehicle can turn easily because the rear wheels can follow their natural path. There is no second rear axle resisting that movement. The entire vehicle can rotate around one common turning center. Now let us add one more rear axle to the same vehicle. This is where the real problem begins. Both rear axles are connected to the same rigid frame, but during a turn, each axle needs to follow a different arc. The leading rear axle tries to follow one path, while the trailing rear axle needs a slightly different path. Because both are locked into the same frame, side forces start building up in the tires. Let us make this even simpler. Suppose the trailer is turning to the right, and its turning center falls between these two rear axles. In this condition, side force acts on one axle toward the right, while the force on the other axle acts in the opposite direction. In multi-axle trailers, the same conflict happens again and again. Each axle tries to follow its own turning arc, but the rigid frame forces all of them to stay aligned together. As a result, some tires scrub against the road, while others absorb side force. This is why the rear wheels of long trailers often appear to struggle the most during a turn. Now let us move to the second case. Here the same vehicle is present, but now there is fifth wheel articulation between the tractor and the trailer. This joint allows the trailer to pivot behind the tractor as a vehicle turns. The front portion with the engine is called the tractor, and the rear portion that carries the load is called the trailer. In this case, when the front wheels of the tractor turn, the trailer also begins to align in that direction. But the same problem still appears at the rear axle group. These wheels need to follow different arcs, so tire scrub happens again. The solution is to use axles in the trailer that can steer automatically according to the side forces acting on them. These auto-steer axles reduce tire scrub during forward movement, but while reversing, the same axles can create a major problem. First, let us understand the auto-steer mechanism. This is the main axle beam. On both sides, a steering knuckle assembly is installed, allowing the wheels to change their angle. To make both wheels steer together, they are connected through a tie rod. Then the wheel hub and the wheel are mounted here. Now this becomes a basic auto-steer axle. But many times the force acting on both tires is not equal. A sudden side force can make the wheels steer on their own, or create rapid vibration, which is called shimmy. To control this, a steering damper is installed. It absorbs sudden movement and keeps the steering motion stable. Now let us place this axle back on the truck. When the truck takes a turn, side force acts on the wheels, and this force pushes them to change their angle according to the turning arc. If the wheels cannot adjust, they must either slip or absorb side force. But in an auto-steer axle, the wheels turn naturally with this force. Here, the forward axle follows a larger turning radius, so its steering angle is different. This axle follows a smaller radius, so its angle is also set differently by the side force. If the trailer is longer, an auto-steer axle can also be installed near the rear end. But as we understood earlier, if this point becomes the turning center, the force on this axle acts toward the right, while the force on the rear axle acts in the opposite direction. So if one auto-steer axle is placed in the middle and another near the rear end, the rear auto-steer axle will turn opposite to the forward auto-steer axle because each axle follows its own side force. Now here's a small question for you. You've solved the turning arc problem by allowing the wheels to auto-steer. So, is this trailer perfect now? Think about it for a moment, pause the video, and write your answer in the comments. This trailer works well only when it is moving forward, but when it has to reverse, these same auto-steer axles can create a major problem. For example, this trailer is currently in a neutral position, with its front wheels set at this angle. Now it has to reverse in the opposite direction, along this arc. So we turn the front wheels toward the opposite side. Now look closely at this auto steer wheel. Until now, the force acting on it has already set the wheel at this angle. We have manually turned the front wheels, but these auto steer wheels are still trying to follow the old arc. In this situation, when the trailer moves backward, force acts on these wheels in this direction, and they may turn even more toward the same side. Because of this, the trailer may not only fail to turn properly, but it may also fail to reverse in a controlled way. Let us understand this with a simple example. You may have seen a shopping cart. When you push it forward, its wheels automatically align with the force and the direction of movement. But as soon as you push it backward, the cart first tries to move from side to side until the wheels align with the new force direction. They keep adjusting their angle. Only after moving a short distance do they properly turn in the direction of the force. A shopping cart is lightweight, so we can control it easily. But a trailer carries a heavy load, so it cannot adjust that quickly. Along with this, the dampers installed on the auto steer axle also slow down sudden steering movement. That is why these wheels often need to be lifted while reversing. For this purpose, extra components are added to the axle. Lift bags are installed on both sides and high-pressure air can be filled into them. These bags help carry the load acting on this axle. Their capacity depends on the truck design, meaning how many tons of load the axle needs to support. But to control the axle height, ride bags are installed. These bags are mounted on an arm connected to the axle. Now watch closely. When air pressure increases inside the lift bags, they expand and push the axle downward. At the same time, air starts releasing from the ride bags. In the opposite condition, when the axle has to be lifted upward, high-pressure air is supplied to the ride bags, while air from the lift bags is released. Now think carefully. If the compressor sends too much air pressure into the lift bags, the axle can move too far downward and start carrying load that should be shared by other axles. That is why air pressure must be adjusted according to the load, so the load is distributed properly across all axles. But the truck's load keeps changing. So does the compressor keep adjusting the pressure in these bags every moment? No, it does not work that way. This load-sensing valve is connected to the trailer chassis. An arm extends from the valve and connects to the axle, allowing the valve to detect changes in axle movement. When the load on the trailer increases, the axle moves upward, and this arm also moves upward. The load-sensing valve then detects the more air pressure is needed in the lift bags. The load-sensing valve sends this signal to the lift axle control valve. This valve is connected to the air reservoir on one side and to the lift bags on the other side. It works as the main control valve that manages air pressure. When the pressure increases in the lift bags, pressure from the ride bags must be released. For this, the control valve sends a signal to the RG2RV valve, which is connected to the ride bags. When pressure increases in the lift bags, pressure from the ride bags must be released. For this, the control valve sends a signal to the RG2RV valve, which is connected to the ride bags. In the opposite condition, when the axle has to be lifted upward, the RG2RV valve receives a signal from the same control valve to increase pressure in the ride bags. But here, the control valve only sends the signal. It does not supply the air pressure. The RG2RV valve receives air pressure directly from the reservoir. Now think for a moment. We have solved two problems. The truck can reverse, and it can also turn. But if the tire on this axle gets punctured, the arm of the load-sensing valve will move upward. The valve may interpret this as an increase in load and send a signal to increase pressure. Then the control valve will try to increase the load carried by this axle by sending air pressure into the lift bags. But the expansion capacity of the lift bags is limited, so in this condition the lift bags can also get damaged. To solve this problem, the driver also has manual control over the lift bags. When the tire gets punctured, the driver can manually lift the axle upward. From the outside, a long trailer may look like a simple machine, but inside it, many different forces are working at the same time. I hope you now understand this entire mechanism clearly. We create original animations with a small team, and you can support our channel by subscribing. Thank you.